Hi everyone, it's Grant Abbott speaking, and I'm here with Tim as well, who's just gone off to get a drink now that he's like super fit. But we were talking about what we do, I suppose, at Lightyear Docs, and particularly closely aligned with Change GPS, is that we find problems, or Tim will find a problem, we'll find a problem, and quite often it'll be many of you who will find a problem for us or an issue for us, and then we come up with a solution for that problem, which quite often will include, one, two, three, four, or five documents. And that solution is really ready and available up on the site for essentially you to utilize for your clients. And I think that's a big difference to documents, because there's any number of places. I mean, if you have a look at just even on our site, we've got over 100 documents, don't cost any more than 99. They're all strategic, but it's when we bundle them up into solutions that really makes a huge difference. Even for example, our leading member, discretionary trustee, that's for bloodline only. So it's a full protection mechanism for bloodline. It only costs $99, which no one else has in the market. So it's unique to us. In fact, it's covered by copyright. So that's a good little position. But again, we provide solutions, not documents. And a key part of that is obviously Change GPS, who can do the comms really well. Do you just want to give a bit of background? I know you had a big session on this last week this week. And before I get into the nitty gritty, I just want to give us a bit of feedback for those people who went on that session, during the session, and more importantly, afterwards as well.
Yeah, so with the Successor Director side of things, you're talking about the Successor Director, so I just missed the intro.
The Successor Director. Yeah.
Look, the big problem that I was trying to understand as an accountant for all of my clients, that like some of them have wills, some of them don't have wills, and we'd have to look at things, but like what would happen if they can't operate their business because they're incapacitated, or what would happen if they died? What's the trigger mechanism to push someone in as a director? And we know you're going to lodge a Form 484 with ASIC. So what I think some people think they would do is, if someone can't act, you just sign a form and away you go. But what's the legal? You can't do that. That's actually
not allowed in the Constitution. Yeah, well, that's. Yeah,
what are the trigger mechanisms in the Constitution, or what needs to be signed now while someone has capacity to permit a change to be made in the company down the track? Because one of the things I've been focusing on for this last 12 months is de-risking my business. And then you apply that to your clients. How do you de-risk your client's business? Because if you're a sole director and you're incapacitated, who can authorise wages to be paid? Who can authorise any contract? Who can do anything? And see, from that point of view, it's not a good thing. So we need to find a solution for that.
And when we have a look at the way, and I just pull this off the current stats. So the first one's an ASIC stat there that will give you the total number of companies registered in Australia. So there's 2.8 million companies registered, and the issue then is, as Tim said, what happens when these companies, if the sole director or even a multi-director, if they die or become incapacitated or go to jail or can't be found. I was having a chat with an advisor who were just doing a session with their clients a little while ago. He had a client that they couldn't find him for months, and then his business the whole thing just collapsed. And we don't think about that, but there's 2.8 million out there, and many of you have got, probably, 3, 4. I mean, how many companies do you have, Tim, look after?
I reckon we've probably got close to 500 as a guess.
Yeah, and a lot of them would be, you'd have bucket companies, you'd have obviously trustee. Yeah, trustee, trading. In fact, it's probably very unusual, and I might be wrong in this, but it's very unusual for many trading companies. Quite often, depends on where they're at. If they've got shareholders, obviously it's going to be a trading company. Otherwise, it may well be just all run through a family trust. Depends on the size. But everyone's got each their own. So the question is, what happens to those? And And as you said, I've just come up with 3 case studies. I'm not necessarily going to solve them. They're pretty easy to solve. But these are just things that I just pulled out of my head. So the first one, obviously, we've got John Smith, who's a director of Smith Nominees, which acts as trustee for the Smith Family Super Fund. John's died and the shares are owned by John. He's got $2 million in the fund, mostly in equities, and the market's dropping. So what happens to that? What do you think happens, Tim? The market's going down. He was a sole director, sole shareholder. So, I mean, what happens to that? I mean, you've got no one in the fund. The fund's dropping like a pancake. The executor can't make themselves, if you're using our, obviously, like your docs deed, again, special purpose, they can come in and the executor can come in and make themselves a trustee. But it's hard when you're dealing with directors because it has to be embedded in that constitution. So it doesn't work that. So generally what will happen there is you have to wait for the executor. So there has to be probate. You have to wait for the executor. The executor will get the shares and then potentially make themselves a director. And by that time, it could all be over. So you're looking at, potentially 6 months to a year. And look, we all went through that volatility earlier on this year, and I think that scared the hell out of everyone. And we're lucky to get back, but at some point in time, it may well happen again. So again, that's a prime case for having a successor director who would step in straight away. As soon as John dies, bang, and ultimately the best successor director is going to be the executor. But it means they're appointed as soon as he dies, not 5 or 6 or 7 months down the track. Because if probate is challenged, then you're in a pretty dire circumstance. It could be well and truly, months, if not years. And also then, what happens to the $2 million just gets locked away. And if there's a family provisions claim, it's not going to be that. The family provisions claim won't attack the SMSF unless you're potentially in New South Wales. But the family provisions claim can attack the shares that are holding the trust. And if you end up with those shares, then obviously you're going to freeze the trust. Now, second one is, I know we had a couple of questions on this in your session the other day, Tim, is John Smith's a dual director with his spouse, Helen, in Smith Trading Company. So the shares are held by John and Helen. So that's pretty traditional. They have 100 shares each or 10 shares each. They're both directors, all that sort of stuff. John dies, but the valid, his will's not witnessed properly. And I've seen this case. Helen's never been in business and is trying to run the company, but has lost $500,000 so far. And that's typically the case. I see it quite often that, we've got our spouse who's going to be able to step in, but if they've got no business wherewithal, it can end up being a disaster. Now, I'm not sure whether it's you were telling me, Tim, or was another one of our advisors, but they were having problems because exactly this situation occurred. The spouse had been running the business for 2 years and effectively been run into the ground, was being chased by creditors. Their family home was on the line, everything. And they just couldn't get in touch with the client because effectively she just put her hands up. It was all just too much for her. So a good successor director, again, which would fit that executor, is really important. And you can't just say, okay, well, it's going to be my spouse, because if they don't have the mental acuity, wherewithal, business acumen, then things can fade and die. Would you agree with that one, Tim?
100%. And as you're talking about this, and I'm relating it back to me, and look, for all the accountants on here today, the things that Grant and I are talking about, relate it to yourselves. Think about yourselves. Do this for yourself, and then you'll know how to best think in your client's shoes. So I'm thinking, and I'm developing a succession plan right now, that if I die, Lyndall needs to go in as a successor director initially, but I'm putting together, I've got a management team of the key people in my business and a couple of key advisors out. So Grant, obviously I would ask you to be one of those, and there'd be 1 or 2 others as well. And I'm actually going to document all this, and this will be in a Change GPS succession document probably by the middle of next year. But the sort of thing you can roll out for your clients, because I need to have these conversations with Lyndall. And this document will also show, if anything happens to me, the key next steps over the next 90 days, over the next year or two. What happens next and when and how, who gets involved, how do we do this? Because she's involved in my business, but she doesn't have the skill set that I have or the knowledge that I have.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm going to develop one of these for my business. I think Grant would probably develop one for his. We'll combine forces, then we'll put something super out there for everyone next year, because it's the logical next step, I think.
Yeah, you've definitely got it's the same as me. We've got a really good team behind us so that the business, would go on. Obviously not as successfully, but it'll still go on pretty well. And I can point back to, for example, now Infinity, when I left, it ended up doing really well. And I think that that's important because we've got a good team. But from a personal family wealth protection point of view, we need that protection. We need to put that moat around our castle, because the last thing is you don't want to get caught out. And so many others. I mean, if you have a look at the third case study, which again is something that we probably even wouldn't think about, the successor director, but we've got John Smith and Jim Jones were sole directors and shareholders of company Joe Jim, which acts as trustee for the Joe Jim Property Development Trust. Trust is currently finishing off developments, and Jim told John that he needs the money from the trust first, as he is going through a tough divorce. And then John dies.
Oh, so Jim's going to take all that money, isn't he?
Yeah, I know. And that's the thing that many of us don't realise, is that when we're in these syndications and we're taking that position as a director, we're taking it as a power. Well, one is not so much because we want to be directors, because I don't think anyone wants to be a director, but you want to protect and drive the development or the business or the investment in the right way. And then leaving that out, and even if it's only for 3 or 4 or 5 months, the destruction the other parties can go through can be really tough. And they're just 3 that I could come up with. Honestly, I could, just from my experience at Abbott-Family, I could think of like hundreds more, and I think that's really important. I don't want to get in too much into this one because I must admit I sort of got looked down that alternate director solution. The problem about the alternate director is that, for example, if it's myself, if I'm the alternate director, then it pulls me away from everything, and that's the person who stands in for me. They're like my reserve director. Whereas a successor director is a fully fledged director. So once they're appointed, they've got all the rights and entitlements of a directorship. They can sign all resolutions, vote at meetings. Importantly, though, is if we have a look at that, if we have a look at down that last section there, so we've got, does a position cease if the person loses capacity or dies? The alternate director, it does. Whereas here, which is really crucial, successor director carries on. So it's a much better, a more elegant solution. So when we go through what the solution is, I'm going to show you how it works, and we'll talk about how to, I'll get Tim to show the change GPS solution that you've got on it, if you want to get that up shortly, Tim. So first off, it's important. You can't just lay over the successor director solution, as Tim said, if your company constitution doesn't allow it. So, the stock standard, companies, or even the special purpose SMSF trustee companies, or whatever you're using for trustee companies for, for discretionary trusts or buckets, they're just not going to have those sort of clauses in. They'll have alternate directors, but again, alternate directors really, doesn't cut the mustard. So what we need to do is upgrade the company constitution. Now, the good thing about that is to upgrade the Corporations Act, you don't necessarily need to even see the variation clauses within the Constitution or how to upgrade it, because it's embedded in Section 136 of the Corps Act that through a shareholders meeting, that all the rules may well be replaced. So much the same, unfortunately, with an SMSF, generally we need to look at the prior deed. With a company, we don't. We just simply have a shareholders meeting, out with the old, and a new one comes in play, which is important. Then, obviously, we need to look at, when we're doing it, what sort of companies are going through, and I'm going to explain how it works a little bit later on. The step 2 is obviously the directors, and it's easy if it's a sole director, but if it's a multi-director company, we want to put in place a resolution that the successor director is going to be appointed in the death, and I've got here death, incapacity, bankruptcy, imprisonment, not available, overseas, so it doesn't want to be a director anymore. So all of those ones, I mean, it keeps on growing from 1 to like about 10 different circumstances. And I think the good thing about this is that it puts a lot of emphasis in your client's mind, so they're really well aware of what's going on. You'll see here, you know, I might show, I won't show the companies, but in our ordinary companies, you got 45.6, notwithstanding rule 45.5, the directors at the request of a director may confirm the appointment of a successor director is to take the director's directorship in the event of the director's incapacity, bankruptcy, death, or their own choosing. It's the same thing up in the SMSF. So we've got the same thing for our special purpose, but I'll come down a little bit later on that one. We've got a built into the EPOA. So if you're going to go down and you want your enduring power of attorney to be your successor director, then all you have to do is just choose that, tick that little box, and then effectively up will pop the relevant documentation as well. So that's an easy way to do it. But again, not all of us want, for example, you know, I want my wife to be definitely my enduring power of attorney when it comes around to medical. And in Queensland, we're lucky we can separate medical and financial together. For those of you who are in Queensland, you may or not be aware, but from the 30th of November, there's brand new advanced healthcare directives, EPOA, short and long form that have been released. So you must use those new forms. So up on our site, all the new forms are already up there. If you're doing an EPOA.
Can I just ask about that? If we've done one in the past, do we just open up the one we've done in the past and we'll fill the new documents?
Yeah, it will actually. So you'll find I like the new document because it's a lot more detailed, provides a lot more guidance. And for someone such as yourself, Tim, where religion is a really important feature, there's quite a bit you can actually put in there. So it's far better than the old one. And they're all the states are starting to learn. So again, if you want to go out, I would suggest to everyone, it's worthwhile if you're in Queensland to go through that process. Now you can tap in and do the successor director yourself, but look, not all the time. As I said, you don't want your EPOA or your attorney to be your successor director. You want, for example, in my instance, it may be that I want my interest represented by Tim. Now, Tim's a shareholder in Lightyear Group, but at least I know my family's interests are going to be looked after by Tim. So now we've got its own solution. So, and I'll go in and show you there. So what I'll do is I'll just go through the basics. Before I show it, I'll get Tim, if you want to show your change GPS stuff, and then we'll go in and have a look at the solution. So what I've done, there's a few firms that are offering this. I know Daniel Butler is offering it, a few others. Not many people are really on top of it from a legal perspective. And essentially, they're charging probably $1,000 or $1,200 per company. And if you went down to your local lawyer and asked it, you know, obviously it's not going to happen. So we've got two solutions on the Lightyear Docs platform. In the company section, we've got a single company solution. So what that does is you'll see where we go through. I'm going to do the multi one, but effectively we look at our director, we look at the company, we upgrade the company, and then obviously put in place that resolution. So it's quite a a good meaty document because you're actually replacing all the company constitution and also then getting that resolution. So the cost of that one's $145, which is that's inexpensive. For those of you who are strategists and licensee, we've rebadged our strategy automation section so that's only available for strategists and licensees. And we've put the multi-director in there. So if you've got a client who's got 3 companies, I'll show you can do them really quickly. And so shaves off 80% of the time. And, as Tim will say, look, you can do as many as you want, but if you're on a subscription, you want to do more solutions, more strategies than less, because every one you're doing, the end benefit of it is virtually next to nothing in terms of being on the platform. So what I'll do is I'll just stop sharing. If you want to start sharing your change GPS, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look at, I'll come back and show you what it looks like on our site.
Okay, show my second screen.
So,
okay, can you see that, Graham?
Yeah, I can see that. Perfect.
So the way I described it on Mondays, Change GPS gives accountants like the front end we give you all the information you need to actually monetize this with your clients and engage your clients. Once you've done that, then you use Lightyear Docs to actually create the documents. So we've gone through what the problem is here. So this is a system that's on Change GPS. It's available for Change GPS members now, and we're putting together a really big update to estate planning and asset protection. A number of modules like this that will be available on 1st of February next year when we do Change Day 2. So Grant will be there with us doing a special masterclass in the morning, and there'll be a lot of updates that you'll see. Change GPS members, they email this up and running for them right now, and we can give them little updates as before we go as well. So we've got the 5 steps here. Number 1, I've said, look, understand the laws, because you need to understand how it applies to yourself. And this is the content that Grant's already shown you. Review the Constitution. Third thing that I've brought up is if you've got someone as a successor director. Now, in my case, initially there might be Lyndall, but Lyndall's got our family home. So to use another one of the Lightyear Docs products or solutions, sorry, the Protector, if someone who's the asset holder is actually going to become a successor director, do we need to set up some protection for the equity in any properties or assets they own? So that's just a reminder there, which is very important one. And then the solution, the email to the client. Now, we've got in Change GPS what we call VPP method, which is value, plan, price. And if you jump on, if you're interested in that, go to info@changegps.com.au and say interested in VPP, and we'll send you some videos on that. But the main thing is when we're offering a solution to a client, the key thing is that we need our clients to understand instantly the value that we're giving to them. So the value for our clients is, hey, we're going to be protecting their business in the event of their incapacity. It will actually continue. We're not going to have a deterioration of their business value. We're not going to have employees that won't get paid. We're not going to lose cash. So it's a big value here. So to charge $350 or $500 or whatever you want to do this per company is actually quite cheap. So what we've got is we've got here, and I'm just going to quickly just blow it up a bit. We've got a VPP email. So this is what you send to your clients to help them to understand what they need to do. So you see action required, protect the control of your companies with a successor director. And that's when we go through and we explain, look, recently we've been giving a strong focus to asset protection and estate planning. A key part is to ensure that you maintain of any companies you're a director of, or if you're incapacitated. And so we go, this is the value to you. We understand you're the sole director of these companies. And you can put in there, look, it could be 4 million, 2 million, 500,000, blah, blah, blah. And then we go through what we need to do and the price. Now, I won't show you the whole email because that's just for Change GPS members. But the key thing is that's the system that you've got that you can use to make certain that your clients understand and appreciate the value that you bring to the table. Now, we're upgrading these all the time, putting new bits and pieces in. That's just one of the systems. We've got one for the Protector. So you can, once again, I'll just show you, that's like a VPP email for the Protector, where we go through and look at what's the value we're protecting in the family home. Might be $1 million, might be $500,000. So we're going to say you're going to be this much better off as a result of us doing this work. And we charge $5,000 per property for the Protector. And I think I've done about 15, we've got about 15 or 20, I've got about another 15 on my table next to me that I'm working through, Grant. So this works, clients love this stuff. And that's what we've got with Change GPS. So we've got the front end to help make your clients aware and to price it and to monetize it. As soon as you've got that, then you're using the Lightyear Docs subscription that you've got to generate these documents. And Grant, I know we've been talking about next year when you've got an upgraded system and so do we, we'll have them talking together. So we can kind of give the advice from a map and then hopefully straight through processing. We'd like to achieve that.
Yeah, it'll be fantastic. Look, I've seen our new system. It's going to be, it's going to be pretty spectacular. Make our current system look very, very boring.
So once again, sort of things like this, data capture forms, we'll take what Grant's got and put them in a form that you can use with your clients and lead back to our VPP emails at the beginning.
Perfect. So let's go and have a look at what we've got. There's a couple of really good questions there, and I'll put the first one to you because you're obviously client-facing. Phil Scandizzo, who's a great, always comes up with some brilliant ideas. How would you discuss succession directors with clients, husband and wife, who are both directors?
Phil, that's a great question. In the asset protection advice we give, so if you're a GPS member, I've got a 25-page letter of advice which covers everything that Grant talks about, the leading member entities, family protection trusts, everything else. But I go in an introduction to asset protection and how we need to separate the risk from the assets. And within a family, I like to have one person as the risk person and one as the asset holder. So normally if dad is the risk person, I really would only want dad to be the director of the company. I'd rather mum, the wife, not be a director if possible. And that's how I discuss it. Say, look, let's change this. Let's put dad on the risk side, mum on the asset side, resign as a director, but have mum as the successor director if anything happened to dad. But you need to look at the assets in mum's name. And don't forget, if she becomes a director, she gets pulled onto that risk side. So you need to use the protector to protect any assets that might be in mum's name. Now, one more thing. If husband and wife or both parties in a relationship are both risky people, say they're both doctors, and we've got a number of clients where they're both doctors, you want to buy the principal place of residence in a personal name for the CGT benefits. But what if you could buy it in a trust and still get the CGT benefits? And so, you've got mum and dad or husband, wife, whoever they might be, both as risky people. There's a few solutions that Grant and I are working on that are coming out next year that can assist with that as well. So we prefer one to be a director, one not. If they're both directors, then we look at secondary forms of protection about that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. George has also come on and he said, and I'll answer this question, is with the EPOA, obviously you still, if you're doing the EPOA, it will throw up the resolutions for you, which is important, but you still need to make sure that the Constitution has been upgraded. So I've built that EPO assuming that the Constitution's upgraded. So you may be better off, George, just going through focusing on the Successor Director solution and keeping the EPOA quite separately if they're not using a light year docs Constitution. So you can see here, I've gone to the company section. You've got the single director solution, which includes the upgrade of the Constitution. And then I'll just go back to so this new strategy automation area, which is for strategists and licensees only. So this is where we have our multi-document solution. The protector is still available for those of you who want to do it individually. But you can see up here, we've got the Successor solution, multi-company. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm on a license. I'm going to just choose my folder. And then what will happen is, this is a new innovation. So I can put the Smith Successor solution. And then effectively I'll start the document. So that now puts me up through the iframe and into our hot docs. As I said, our new system, we're looking at coming on board very shortly, and it'll be amazing. It'll be able to, hopefully, fingers crossed, is that you'll be able to, we'll be able to extract for you clients that do have directors, and then, through Change Your Best, send out letters to the clients with a data capture with who's going to be a succession director. That data capture then pre-fills the documents. So virtually you guys have to do nothing there, because everything will be completely automated. So that's where we're going to with this new world. It's called, in fact, it's called, there's a really good book. In fact, I'd probably encourage you to read it, Tim. It's only just come out. It's called Intelligent Automation. You can get that on Amazon, get it through Kindle. But, where we're going, it's only just started like 3 years ago. I've been into that robotic processing automation for a while, but this intelligent automation is just amazing. So we put our document set up. Again, you're going to just see how ridiculously easy it is. I'm going to use the Abbott-Family logo, but just use your own one, because this is essentially to deal with the Corporations Act. You don't need to be licensed. You don't need to be a lawyer for this. This is all in there. So in this interview, you can organise for one or more successor directors to be appointed as successor director in circumstances where the current director is incapacitated, blah, blah, blah. So we put in the date of the resolution. Let's say that we're meeting with a client on the 8th. They're going to sign everything up. And as I said, it's going to be so easy. So we'll just go through Bogan, Pty Limited, put in the ACN, and we've got the current director name, John Smith, and he's just going to put his son in, Max Smith. Now, here's the important one for you is we've got the chairperson. Remember, this will come up very shortly. So we've got John Smith, and we've got the director. Is the company constitution to be upgraded? So you can either go yes or no. So you have to tick one or the other, otherwise it leaves the field blank. So let's go to yes. So let's go down the track. We've actually got a SMSF corporate trustee. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a bit of a trick on this one. So I've got an existing SMSF corporate trustee, but while I'm here, I'm going to actually take the advantage of upgrading it to a leading member SMSF corporate trustee. So I can do two things at once, and that protects it for the bloodline. Now, if we've only got John Smith, who's the shareholder, that will then go down that process. So then I add another. So then I've got Triclear, Pty Limited. I put in the ACN. It's going to be interesting. Our new system will actually pull ACNs direct. Once you put the ACN in, it'll actually complete all the data for you. So that's...
Love that. Can't wait.
I know. That'll be... It's amazing where the world's going at the moment. Like the hot docs is lovely, but the problem is it's just a bit too old. And we're on the fast track, or the ASIC has released a new system that no one else has. So that'll be good. Okay, so we've got here what sort of company. We've got a bucket company. So I'm just going to do a standard company upgrade. Again, who's the shareholders? So we've got John Smith there. And then if I want, I can then add another one. And you should be able to do all of this on your phone anyway. So now I've got bucket company, ACN, a current director, John Smith. Successor director is going to be Max Smith. And then again, John Smith, chairperson. Are we going to upgrade? No, because we're already using the Lightyear Docs system. So we just go down there and that's it. So we're finished. So I've just done 3 companies. It took me, what, 4 minutes, 5 minutes? And then we'll have a look at what the output does.
5 minutes. And what would you charge for this, Grant?
I think, look, I agree with you. Look, personally, I think your $350 mark per company is pretty, if it was just the resolution, absolutely. But because you're getting a resolution and an upgrade, I would say that it's probably worth a lot more than that. But I would bundle it up. If it's free, I'd probably charge $2,500. I'd probably charge $2,200 if I'm doing 3. Because remember, I'm enveloping, I'm providing it that moat idea, providing that protection for the moat over all of my trustee companies, my bucket companies, everything. So you'll see there's a successor director solution. There's a constitution upgrade to leading, to special purpose leading member corporate trustee. So we go through the upgrade process. John Smith's the member, so it's actually a special resolution by the shareholders. I won't go through that, but then you go into the constitution. That's a bloodline one. So John, if you're going up there, he's the chairman of that company. So this is great for SMSF. He has complete veto power over all decisions, investment decisions, even with estate planning. The benefits can't be paid out to the estate if it looks as though they're going to be diluted or dissipated to non-bloodline. So look, I really like this solution. Next one I've got here is, who have I got? That's Rule 25, so that's the special purpose. Okay, so the next one I've got there is special resolution by the company members to change the constitution. So this is for Triclear there. So we're just doing a standard constitution. and then that's upgraded there. And then effectively the last one is another special resolution. And if we have a look at that, sorry about that. So another special resolution here. So this is just to appoint. So this is for the, as you can see, Triclear. So it should be, the bucket one should be there. So I'm not sure what happened there, but I'll have a look at that. So there's the bucket one there. And at the end, you've also got the ASIC info as well, which is important. So that's really the, yeah. So that the.
Can I just explain?
Sorry.
We had a question on Monday with the Successor Director. How do you inform ASIC? You know, do you inform them now? How do you do that? And the answer is those resolutions you just showed, they give the authority for the Successor Director who is nominated to, in the future, sign a Form 484 and lodge with ASIC. So it's not like you lodge a Successor Director nomination with ASIC now. The person doesn't show up now, but that resolution gives them the legal right in the future to sign off on a 484 and appoint themselves as director. That's really crucial for everyone to be aware of.
Yeah, correct. And I think it's, if you look at it, obviously you always come from the SMSF side, but if you have a look at it, it's the same as, for example, a binding death benefit nomination. So what you're doing is you're preempting the nomination. It's already signed, so future directors can't do anything against it. Executives, so you're essentially in there, and I think that's important. So those three documents I just did really quickly. So it's 5 minutes. I would probably charge, if these are like the big constituent documents for the client, I would charge probably 2,200, which that's for those three. So I think you need to bulk price them. That's what I would do. I think if it was just a basic company, probably not so much. But if you're looking at the trustee for your SMSF, the trustee of discretionary trust or bucket company or trading company, I think it's really important that we've got something that's completely different. I can't believe I've actually talking about overpricing you, Tim. So it's
look, I'm happy with those prices. I know a lot of accountants are dipping their toe in the water with this sort of thing for the first time. And I think it's important that if you haven't done this, work with don't undersee yourself. $350 per company is absolute minimum. I think 500, 750 plus GST per company when you do the constitution upgrade is very important. But it comes down to helping your client to understand the value. And just, Grant, if you can send me those slides, I will. I'm just going to put those examples in our VPP email. So the clients, when you use the VPP email, the clients will have these examples in front of them. And all you need to do is send the email and then say, what if this happens to you? And they'll get it. And one thing as well, someone asked at the session we did on Monday, what do you say to a client when they say, why are you just telling me about this now? Why haven't you told me about this in the past? Very simply, just say, I've just become aware of this now. We have just started to focus post-COVID on estate planning and asset protection. And when I did some CPD, I learned that a will doesn't cover this. And so we are now letting all of our clients to be aware, and we have a solution to protect you. It's all you got to say.
In fact, it's probably really important, I would say, and maybe it's not a bad idea if I could make a suggestion for you, Tim, is to set in place an email, which is more of a rebranding email, and just saying, look, we've been involved doing blah, blah, blah for you for such a long time, but really COVID has changed the way everyone thinks about things. And things that are important are obviously asset protection, protecting your family's wealth, ensuring it goes to your bloodline, making sure there's no huge litigation issues, no family provisions. And so what we're doing is we've put our toe in the water. We're going in very hard. So you're going to see from us over the next, over a few years, if there's a really good asset protection or estate planning or succession or whatever, that we're going to be in touch with you so that you can then rebrand it. And it takes away from the fact you don't know. It's just that you're now taking on those extra skills so that when you go to the client, say, well, I've got another one, like the protector, it just sort of fits in there because they're aware that you're going to come with solutions to their particular issues. So I'll go down that track. I think if you could do that, it'd be good.
I'll write that today. That's great. Yep.
Yeah. And I think it's just a good rebranding for everyone, because we are going down that track. Probably next week, the week after, we'll have a meeting with Tim, myself, and also Michael Jeffries, and we'll be going through the Succession Asset Protection Estate Planning Advisors Association, and we'll be going through a lot of that. So that will give us the legitimacy. So we need to start rebranding for our clients anyway. I think really you've got Change GPS. This is a perfect time to get all this stuff out there as things start to get a little bit quieter for a lot of our businesses, so they can start to think about, what could potentially happen there. So work out your pricing, your mechanism, work out your charge rate, get the client to sign off. And as you can see, it's pretty quick to do. I mean, you can punch them out. I mean, you're not going to say to the client, look, virtually, you can get them over the phone, tell me who the Successor Director is. If you've got all the details, you'll be able to punch it out in half an hour, but you're not going to do that because you won't value the charging. So what you could do, if you've got 3 or 4 different companies, you could send them through, just say, look, we'll have it done by Monday. We're going to work really hard, so on and so forth. So again, I think that, again, if we rebrand, look, honestly, that Protector is such a godsend. I had a client just before this session. They had a number of farms. It was introduced by another advisor. I'm not going to go into names, but they had a number of farms in their own name. Had cancer, unfortunately. Spouse they had a few joint farms. A son who'd been married a couple of times before, and they had quite a sizable. It was very sizable. So it was 7 figures in wealth, and they only wanted to give their 2 daughters $400,000 each, and the rest just go to the son. I said, look, there's no way in the world you could even try to do that through an estate. Look, I could go to the best estate planning lawyers in Australia. They'd easily, on that size, would charge between $50,000 to $100,000. You'd end up with all these amazing testamentary trusts. But at the end of the day, it's going to get challenged. And on a $10 million estate, it would last, easily as $1 million in legal fees. So we went back and just said, look, we can achieve everything, but the best thing to do is put in place the Protector, because that's going to give you the element, and then make sure you've got your succession right, so that your executor is going to be the son, is also going to be the family protection appointor. So again, just getting down this track, the further you go in, and as Tim said, we've got about 3 or 4 other ones to roll out, but just get in and get involved, because it's you do see clients love this stuff, this protection, bloodline, all these key words. It really sparks them up. If you say we're going to save you a bit of tax, it's okay, but it's not fantastic. But once you start getting into their family, particularly COVID has put a lot of pressures on families. So it's very exciting. And again, of course, the leading member suite, we've got, that's the bloodline suite. So, don't forget to use that. And look, make that commitment to just go out and look after your clients. And I can tell you the money will follow.
100%. I just, as a parting comment to everyone, if you're using Lightyear Docs, jump on this weekend and do this for you and for your family. Do the Successor Director, upgrade all your things. Now, do your enduring powers of attorney, do your wills, understand the docs and how they work. Offer to do it for free for your team members if they want as well. And then you're in a stage to really talk with authority with your clients. And if you've got 100 companies, if you charge $500 a pop, that's 50 grand in revenue you can make December and January. And that's stuff that your clients really need. And as well, if a client says they don't want it, in Change GPS, we're actually including an email for the client to actually sign off and say they do not want this.
Yeah, I think
because again, when the crap hits the fan down the track, when you've given this advice and they don't want to pay for it for whatever reason, and 9 times out of 10 they will with the VPP email. But if they don't want it, get them to sign off they don't want it. Again, probably half of them at that stage will say, okay, I'll get it. The other half, they'll sign off. Fantastic. There's no liability back on you. You've de-risked your business.
Yeah, no, I saw one financial planner earlier this year who just was obviously hadn't done an SOA, an asset were starting to come knocking on the door. He said, "Can I backdate a protector?" And I said, "Well, you should have done it, years ago." So, again, just from your own perspective, and Phil, look, that's exactly the first one. Sit down with your spouse and say, "This is the reason we're doing this, is to protect our family," and that potentially people are going to be, nasty lawyers are going to start knocking on the door. So we need to protect you as well, because the stress and the worry and the concern, like for example, if Tim's coming in looking after my stuff, it puts a barrier between, the lawyers, the accountants, the litigators, against, my spouse, who, Amanda just wouldn't even know what to do. So it's better to do that, because, you've got someone in there who's strong, who's going to put that hand up and make sure that your interests are looked after. Anyway, it's me signing off. I know Tim's going off for a lovely week up at Noosa, enjoying himself and having a lot of family stuff. We've got a session next Thursday. We're going to go through all our light year suite of companies, so you understand the difference between our special purpose leading member companies. We've got our family protection trustee company, which is coming out next week. So I know. So we're getting there, and there's a lot more stuff to come. But anyway, thank you very much for your time. I can see we've got one more question there. Oh, yeah, good on you, Tim. Graham Davis. Well, you're over in Perth, mate, so it's pretty easy over there.
Graham, I've worked very hard this year. I need to get back at my best so I can keep delivering for everyone next year.
Yeah, have a look at that book, Intelligent Automation. Get it on Kindle. It's just amazing the stuff that is going to happen to our industry over time. I don't think there's any such thing anymore as, what we thought as accountants and planners and all that. I think it's all going to be morphed into people looking after their clients on a family level, and then that works from there. So, which is really good. Tim, if you want to talk to me in relation to the protector, feel free to give me a call. My number's 0418 735 491. If you want to know how to market it, then contact Tim. Neville, the book, again, it's really high level. It's called Intelligent Automation. So Intelligent Automation. So I'll just show you, where it is. I've got it on my Kindle, so you can have a look at it when you have a look at the recording. I've got my little Kindle there. It's not a bad idea, actually, getting your unlimited Kindle. We can just go and get as many books as you want, which is crazy. So you'll see I've got that huge amount of books there. Look, I've been a big fan of robotic processing automation for quite a while. And if you look at automating everything, the beauty about it is you can run a really lean and mean show, because everything is automated for you. So there it is, Intelligent Automation. It only came out by Pascal, I can't read that, Pascal Bonnet. So he's a McKinsey guy. And the Intelligent Automation only came out in 2017. So if you have a look through that, it's quite indicative of where we're going. So you're in front of the whole pack. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, and we'll certainly see you. If I don't see you before, make sure you have a good Christmas, and I'm sure we'll catch up before then, Tim.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks, everyone.
You'll send all this information out very shortly. It's Grant Abbott, Tim Munro, signing off.